Welcome back to The Big Issue on City TV and also on 97.3 City FM. My name is Godfred Akotobwa. I'm your regular host for this program. Currently discussing the matter of Parliament and the monies that are paid to it by virtue of car loans and whatnot, and the decision that they have taken that they no longer want these car loans, but the state must provide vehicles for them to carry out their duties. Of course, we've heard different opinions on this from Kweku Pencil, he's a lawyer, Yawo Pom, also a lawyer, and Franklin Kujo, president of Imani Africa. But this ties into a much bigger conversation about the Constitution, and I'll use lawyer Mr. H. Kwesi Prempeh, who is currently, I think, director of CDD. He did an interesting post based on what he had heard the entire week. And this was basically, this whole conversation about the Constitution is born out of the controversy that arose from payment of certain monies to the First Lady and the Second Lady as an outcome of the Professor Aya Ntiamwa Bedu committee's work on monies to be paid for Article 71 office holders. And it caught the attention of the general public. A lot of people were very upset by this and led to the First Lady and Madam Samira Baumia basically saying, well, we do not want the monies anymore, so we are paying back everything that we have received. The First Lady paid back 899,000 Ghana cedis, just like that. I think Madam Samira Baumia has also paid back hers, and has also led to a bigger conversation about the role of our lawmakers and just the law itself, and whether it has outlived its usefulness and needs extensive amendments to be able to make it a lot more useful and relevant, and not just become a tool for giving largesse to the governing class. That's what a lot of people think. And people have also asked the question, why did we spend so much money on a Constitutional Review Commission whose work was completed on time, submitted to a sitting president who set up a 5-member committee to implement it? Work was put on hold. Of course, there were legal challenges to the work, but 11 or so or 10 years down the line, nothing seems to have changed. In fact, they requested for, one of the significant recommendations was the setting up of an independent emoluments committee or commission to see to the payments of these things, because they realized that the relationship between the three arms of government was what the commission called incestuous. They were basically too close. They were related. So they needed to find an independent way of gauging this. And a very important line in there was that these recommendations were to be done with the economy of the prevailing times in mind when these suggestions are made or when these recommendations are made. So people have asked, why then don't we have a look at the Constitution again? And I've read a couple of Facebook posts and Twitter posts, and in fact academic papers on people who have said, look, the 1992 Constitution basically was the former late President Jerry John Rawlings's giveaway gift to himself and his the people in his government. So it was not a constitution that was designed with forward thinking in mind. And also because it has been in place since 1992, its use has given room for the general citizenry to assess its strengths and weaknesses, and it looks like its weaknesses at the moment outweigh its strengths, and so perhaps there might be the need to do a significant work on this particular Constitution. So just to quote Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh, he said that, he wrote that under the 1969 Second Republican Constitution, Ghana had a fixed number of MPs, and the job of an MP was not treated as a full-time position. MPs received a certain allowance for attendance, but not a salary, and of course, there was nothing like end-of-service benefits. Today, the Constitution of the Fourth Republic places no limit on the number of MPs. We started with 200 in 1993, we are now at 275. Now, it says, expect the EC to jack up the numbers once the census is completed and election 2024 is around the corner. And unlike what we had under the 69 Constitution, MPs are now paid as full-time salaried public officers, though they still draw allowances for committee sittings, which activities, of course, are an intrinsic part of an MP's job description the world over. By a little-known amendment to the Constitution adopted by supermajority vote of Parliament in 1996, MPs are also entitled to a gratuity, otherwise known as ESBs, and to a so-called car loan once every 4 years, even if they win re-election to Parliament multiple times. On top of all this, our full-time MPs remain free with the nominal permission of the Speaker to carry on with their private, professional and other pecuniary pursuits, including running or owning businesses that win contracts from and do business with the government. And those among them who find favor with the president but do not get chosen as ministers can and often do get appointed to state corporate boards from which they draw sweet allowance and perks. Some of the lawyers among our MPs also continue with their private legal practice, appearing in court in some instances to represent their private clients, even in cases against the same state they presumably work for full-time. So how exactly are our MPs working for us as full-time MPs, and what have they done for us lately? Note that every single international commercial transaction or agreement we have entered into the Fourth Republic, including those that have led to breaches and judgment debts, was once approved by our MPs in Parliament. And he goes on to make a long case, but bottom line is saying that frankly, he says, well, this is the kind of Parliament and the MPs the Fourth Republican Constitution has wrought, and this is only a small slice of it. It does not get better. Frankly, other than the Constitution of the First Republic, this Constitution is, from a governance and people-centered perspective, easily the worst Constitution in our political history. It is also the most profligate in the sense that it invites wasteful growth in the size of government and in public expenditure. No wonder it has both attracted and spawned a political class in its own image. The 1992 Constitution has lasted longer than all the rest only because we, the people, are tired of and reject coups and the disruption and retrogression they bring and entail. The longevity of this Constitution is not because there is something intrinsically superior or great about the Constitution itself. There isn't at all. But this should not mean we must continue to put up with whatever is served us in the name of the Constitution. Time to fix the Constitution in the many places where it is irredeemably broken. Now, the fixing of this Constitution was done at great cost at a time when you were in government. And nothing seems to have come out of it extensively. We do know that at least certain parts are in play at the moment. But it does look like the work of the Constitutional Review Commission has been tossed aside. And this particular matter has brought some of the suggestions or recommendations made by the Constitutional Review Commission to the fore. And the general populace also asking again, is this Constitution really useful at this moment?
Oh, I mean, nobody doubts the usefulness of this Constitution. Nobody doubts that. I mean, the Constitution has been the most enduring Constitution throughout our various republics. And people have come to accept it, and they are working with it. There are some aspects of it that we claim are problematic. And very often when you raise the issue of, oh, the Constitution, I say, well, why not also say the people? Why the Constitution? The reason is that there's a presidential system of government in the US. It seems to be working. They're also having problems. Recently, you know, they are raising issues about what may be termed here as an attempted coup d'etat and etc. Allegedly involving the former president and his supporters and etc. Go to the UK. They are exercising, using a parliamentary system. There have been issues there also. We have blended it, which is a mixed system of parliamentary, executive, presidential system, and still there are problems. We have tried the parliamentary system. We said we were jettisoning that for a presidential system. We tried a presidential system, we jettisoned that, and then we now went for
the hybrid.
A hybrid system. And again, we're raising issues about the hybrid system. So I always tell people that wait. The only thing that has remained constant in all this is the people. It's not the constitutions. So why is it that the constitution is working for UK, a parliamentary system? Why is it that the presidential system is working for the US? And here, we've tried all, we are not satisfied, we have tried hybrid and we are still complaining. So sometimes it's proper to examine ourselves. If you ask me, I'll say the Constitution is working. Even this issue of emoluments, that you have raised. I spoke, I think, to the same City FM.
Yeah, 2 days ago.
2 days ago. And I said, it is because the Constitution is working. That is why the provisions in it that guarantee freedom of speech, we are speaking. And the fact that the executive feel threatened because there will be an election coming. And the voters will factor this into the decision whether or not to vote for you or not to vote for you. That is why some people are returning their monies. If the Constitution is not working, they won't return the monies. But it's working. The system is working. Some aspect of the system is ensuring accountability. So it's a Constitution that is working. It is for us to activate the various facilities provided for us in the Constitution. We are talking about the First Ladies and what has been given to them. It is clearly wrong. It is wrong. It is not in the Constitution. They are not Article 71 office holders. That is clear. It's obvious. I say that the committee set up by the President brought a recommendation that we as parliamentarians, at least those of us who are at least knowledgeable in constitutional law, should have noticed and perhaps blocked that. But it passed through us, so we are at fault. And I want to repeat that. We, the parliamentarians who passed this, are at fault. That we allowed something that is obviously unconstitutional to pass through. It's not the first time. A lot of things come unconstitutional, they pass through. But again, the system is working because some people have noticed that it's unconstitutional. They've, red flagged it. We are discussing it. Others have run to the Supreme Court to seek the aid of the Supreme Court to annul it. The system is working because there's a filter at that level. That if it fails the committee and fails Parliament, there is a Supreme Court that can declare that, look, this is unconstitutional. So far as I'm concerned, the Constitution is working. Now, First Ladies, clearly, I'm not in a position to defend that they are Article 71 workers. They are not Article 71 workers. Question then is, should they be recognized one way or the other by the state? Do they perform functions that are, in a sense, state functions? Does the state owe them any obligation? We're not the only people with First Ladies. There are First Ladies in America, there are First Ladies in the UK, there are First Ladies in Netherlands, there are First Ladies all over the world. So we can just learn from next doors, and this is not difficult to learn. Go to the US, where we started from as an executive system. First Ladies there don't get paid. They are not paid. In fact, the current First Lady is still a teacher. Lecturer, yeah. She's still a lecturer. She lectures and earns her salary from her workplace. That's not to say that even they don't feel that there's a need for them to be paid. Even there has been debate in which some people have felt that they should be paid because they feel that somehow they perform roles that are public in nature, and so they should be paid something. That's what they think, or at least some facilities should be made available to them. And indeed, facilities are being made available to them. So at that level, I think there's some consensus across jurisdictions that First Ladies tend to perform roles, and for those roles, some facilities should be made available to them. I cited an example on another station last week. The First Lady of America came here. She didn't come in a private plane. She came in an official plane. And she had Secret Service people following her. And the United States Embassy here provided all the facilities that she needed to be able to perform the functions. She was received here, not in her private capacity, but in an assumed official capacity as a First Lady. And yet there's no law in the United States that establishes the office of First Lady. No law. The same way in Ghana, there's no law that establishes the office of a First Lady. So it's a convention everywhere that the wives or the wife of a president, will necessarily take up some kind of duties. And to that extent, the state should provide her facilities. It could be office space, it could be, vehicles, it could be seconding staff from the protocol department to provide some protocol services, and probably even from the civil service, public service, to provide some administrative support for her, and etc. That is recognized all over the world. And I think Ghanaians haven't really challenged this, because for years they've been living with first ladies and they've seen them drive public vehicles or be driven in what they assume to be public vehicles. They've seen them take up buildings at Rich and occupy them, and they know those buildings belong to the state, and they haven't really raised the issues. The issue today is, should they be paid salaries? I think that is the issue today.
Yes.
And whether you call it salaries, you call it allowances, because some even say, oh, they've been giving them allowances and we haven't said anything. Why are they now giving them salaries? That's the issue. So that administrative error in recommending that they should be given salaries, I think that is what has really sparked this whole debate. And I agree with the general public position that they are not entitled to salaries because they are not Article 71 workers.
But they are entitled to something.
They are entitled to something, but where do we place it? We place it under the Office of the President Act.
Okay.
Because the Office of the President Act makes provision for the appointment of a Chief of Staff who will be responsible for both the Office of the President and the management of the household of the President. And the First Lady is part of the household of the President. And so facilities provided in the household, the First Lady enjoys them. If we have built presidential accommodation at Flagstaff House, I say we shouldn't say Flagstaff House, we should say what? Jubilee House.
Yes.
Jubilee House. Oh, why? Why laughing?
Which one did you work at? Did you work at Flagstaff or Jubilee?
So you build accommodation at Jubilee House. Will you say the First Lady shouldn't move into it? Or that if she's living, she should pay rent? It's a facility that's available to the President. The gardeners are paid for. Electricity is paid for. The drivers are paid for. There are vehicles there for people there to use. So all those are facilities. But when you extend it and say she should get a salary, and you haven't specifically created that office as a public office, that is where I think the issue is being raised. And I think that rightly so, legally and constitutionally. If we want to recognize First Ladies as an official position, we probably can do so by amending the Office of the President Act to define the Office of First Lady as an official position, and then determine what emolument should go with it as an official position. That debate hasn't come before us yet. At least maybe this occasions that debate. Do we really want that? Because I hear all sort of discussions being held on radio in which pro-First Ladies are arguing that their bosses are exercising public functions. They are voluntary public functions. They are pro bono in nature. They are supportive of their husbands' political careers. Ghanaians haven't really contracted them to do what they are doing. But Ghanaians do appreciate some of the things that they are doing. The same way that Ghanaians appreciate the work that a lot of NGOs are also doing. And so nobody should think that we don't appreciate what First Ladies do. We appreciate what First Ladies do, which are of a public nature. But then also, a lot of it is political. They are supporting their husbands. But the contract that Ghanaians have is with their husbands, not the First Ladies themselves directly. And they are simply supporting their husbands. I believe that a legislation to clarify this issue might work if the First Ladies really want to be considered as public officers. Otherwise, the previous arrangement where they were taken care of as part of the households of the President by the Office of the Chief of Staff should hold. And it never created any problems. In fact, people didn't even know what they were being given.
Do you think we need to even... I've heard sentiments who say perhaps we should even review Article 71. Is that...
Review it in what sense? The Independent Emoluments Commission thing, the work of the Constitutional Review Commission, and etc. Those are interesting recommendations. Constitutional Review Commission recommended that we should have an independent emoluments commission. There's nothing wrong with that. At the end of the day, I always say that they will be populated by human beings. They will be populated by human beings. And if this mechanism that we have activated now to check parliamentarians and to check the President and to check the committee, if we don't use this same mechanism, those same human beings can do even worse things. Because there are countries that also have independent emoluments commissions. go and find out whether in those countries they haven't made provisions for first ladies. So the existence of an independent emoluments commission doesn't necessarily mean that in the end there may not be a recommendation that the first lady should be considered as a public office for whom facilities should be made available to and emoluments should be provided for. So the commission doesn't really change anything. I think that eternal vigilance of the citizenry, for me, is the greatest guarantee. It's the greatest guarantee. Apart from the fact that the whole task of implementing the commission's report has been challenged by people who are asking, how do we implement? Because there are so many recommendations for the review. The question then is, do you lump all of them and put them in the current constitution and now reenact a completely new constitution with the amendments embedded in those ones, and then you put a one vote, yes or no? Or do you take the clauses one after the other? Because there are close to 500,000 recommendations, and you could have about the same 500 articles or clauses to cater for the substantive recommendations and then the provisos and etc. that would normally go with it. Question is, how do you put those to a vote in a referendum? Because it is an article, it's an entrenched provision.
Yes.
And because it's an entrenched provision, how do you deal with the mechanism? I think it is one of the key issues that bedevil the implementation. If you put it in one document to reenact, I have issues with some provisions. I don't have issues with other provisions. How am I really being given an independent opportunity to choose? If you also say we will take them one after the other, have you considered the cost? So I think that we have a difficult situation here, and that is probably what accounted for the non-implementation of it. Just consider, for instance, even the one that the president himself in his electioneering campaign promised to implement, which is the direct election of district chief executive and metropolitan chief executives. Look at the challenges that it went through. And look at the cost involved in the whole process. The only one that seemed to have gone through successfully without problems is the creation of the regions, the new regions. So,
but that also say, well, that's also because it's politically beneficial. So that's the only reason why it went through.
Well, I mean, politically beneficial to who?
Depends on how you look at it. The cynics say politicians push that through because, well, it does figure into how an election is won.
No, it probably could help. Just the same way that if you provide free education, it will help. If you provide free healthcare, it will help. If you did more roads, it will help. Okay. Same way if you extend electricity, it will help. So it's not the only thing that could help you politically. But if that is what the people in the communities, in the regions are demanding, and you are simply responding to that need, I mean, that's cynicism that, oh, because it benefits politically. I think that, can we build a consensus on it? And do we really think that the investment is worth it? I called into CTF and asked them, okay, so because MPs are getting cars, we should do a referendum. Okay. And because 4 or 5 first ladies have been categorized as Article 71, something that could be easily quashed by the Supreme Court without a referendum. You know, you think that we should do a referendum to amend Article 71. Have you considered the cost? The cost of a referendum, the cost of a referendum could buy vehicles for 20 parliaments.
Anyway, hold on for me. Hold on for me. Let me talk to Kuku Pencil again on this particular matter. Lawyer Pencil.
Hi.
Yes. Thank you for staying with me. So we are in this matter of the Constitutional Review Commission and the work that they did, and also perhaps they need to look at certain elements of the Constitution. Now, Honorable Mahama Yariga is of the opinion that, look, the Constitution is fine because the filters are there. And it's the reason why we are even able to have a conversation on radio or TV about this. And it's the reason why there are normally that the entire Mabedu committee put in that recommendation of this was flagged and has been dealt with in a manner. But there are those who also say, well, are we now leaving our constitution to mob justice of sort to deal with? And also concerns about Article 71 office holders and how their emoluments are agreed upon. What is your take on all this?
Yeah, I think in fairness to Honorable, I largely agree with him with most of the submissions that he has made. To the point that I disagree, it's only an extension between my position and that of his. It's really nothing new. But I think first and foremost, we need to recognize, number one, that a constitution is a dynamic document, dynamic to reflect the dynamism of society. In other words, a constitution need not be static. I like us to appreciate that we have always had constitutions in this country, beginning from 1916, what we call a Clifford Constitution. In 1925, we had what we call the Gettysburg Constitution. We came, I think between 31 and 34, there was a constitution, but the most significant one was the 1946, when we came to the Burns Constitution. Then we had 1951 Constitution. We had 54 Constitution. Then we had the 57 Constitution. And then we had the 1960 Republican Constitution. Now, if you see the difference between the 1960 Constitution and the 1969 Constitution is that the 1960 Republican Constitution was about a 10-page or so document. It wasn't really big. Between that and 69, it has grown volumes. Between 69 and 79, it has grown volumes. Between 79 and 1992, it has grown volumes. And what it means is that those difference in volumes reflect the aspirations, the new things that society or Ghanaians, for that matter, sat down and recognized that were lacking in the previous constitutions. It is that extent that I talk about the dynamism of a constitution. In other words, it's a document that grows. So that if we look at the committee of experts that sat down to give us the 1992 constitution, in respect of which we went for a national referendum, in their wisdom, they recommended Article 71 of the 1992 Constitution. I'm not too sure whether this provision is found in the previous constitutions, but offices, public offices were named. And so it's to that extent that I agree with Honorable that the office of First Ladies is not in the 1992 Constitution. There's absolutely no way that anybody can talk about emoluments in relation to the Article 71 and bring in the office of First Ladies. It doesn't happen. It's not there. And to the extent that anybody is thinking of giving First Ladies of this country something under that article, it's not there. It is very possible that Ghanaians may come to a time, and please, this is true, amendments to the Constitution. As far as I know, Article 71 is one of the entrenched provisions of the 1992 Constitution. What it means is that if we really want to amend Article 71 to include anything, we may have to go to a referendum. And please, let no one talk to me about the cost of organizing a referendum. It is part of the cost and expense of running a democracy. What it means is that if Ghanaians really are concerned to ensure that we have to amend the Constitution in any respects, of which, of course, Article 71 may only be one of them. But regarding Article 71 and the office of First Ladies, which have now become topical, well, he says maybe the Office of President Act. I'm not too sure about what he's saying, because that also brings another issue altogether. But let me tell you, so I'm putting it straight that it is very possible that if Ghanaians are given the choice as to whether indeed the office of First Lady should be recognized to the point where they ought to be rewarded with salaries and so forth and so on, let Ghanaians say so. It may possibly be a vote of yes or no on a simple question that will be put to the electorate. But getting from the feeling, getting from the outcry, getting from the outpouring of emotions and sentiments over this topic, it appears Ghanaians are clear that the office of First Ladies, for whatever purposes that they serve in this country, ought not to be rewarded with that. And please, let me show you my own concern, because every time that I talk as a lawyer, I like to draw a distinction between the office of a lawyer and the fact that I'm also a citizen. I may be talking, of course, from a legal perspective, but what the law says may not necessarily reflect what, in my view, ought to be the case. I like to draw that distinction. So I may uphold the integrity of the law, but condemn the law for the reason that it does not, aspire, or it does not meet a certain aspiration of the people. Like there's a debate in this country about whether people who commit suicide ought to be punished or not to be punished. The law is that if you do, we should punish you. But Ghanaians may decide that a time has come that they need to be punished. But that's just by way of an illustration. So coming to the issue before us, let me tell you what. I mean, if you say somebody, a public officer for that matter, is entitled to be paid a certain salary, don't forget that we've got a law in this country relating to vetting, relating to declaration of assets and so forth and so on. What it means directly and indirectly is that if the office of a first lady of this country, a second lady of this country, reaches an agreement with us that we will pay her 20,000 a month, 30,000 a month, then it should be possible for us at the end of her term, look at the money that we pay to her by way of salary and look at the assets that she had acquired over the same period and determine whether she could have acquired those properties legitimately within the income that we gave to her. The ease with which these monies were refunded raises issues. Does anybody take a salary or allowance or whatever and keep it in a bank account to the point that anytime that you say you should bring the money, they quickly draw up a check? The suggestion that they've shown to all the people who made the noise is indeed the fact that that money, they just didn't need it. Somebody needed to put something in the record just to show that this is what we are doing. That money they took is stashed somewhere. They picked it from somewhere and brought it to us and said, if you're making all this, no, take this. Suggesting that they don't really even need that money. But that is beside the point. The real point, as far as I'm concerned, is that Article 71 is clearly, it's not that it is silent. At the time that the Constitution was drawn, at the time that we had a committee of experts, at the time that we decided to give ourselves a new Constitution, the thinking that the wife of a president or the wife of a president must be paid did not arise. It is not that Ghanaians do not know that those people may perform functions, those people may do things, those people may support our presidents in ways that maybe nobody else can do. But having recognized all that, we all concluded that they did not need to be paid from the public purse. Possibly because we know that the office of the president, I mean, there are all kinds of things that are available. The office of the vice president, there are all kinds of that available. And in my own honest opinion, any talk about paying anything to the wives of our president and our vice president, or indeed, who knows, after we have agreed on this one, the issue of the wife of the Speaker of Parliament is not going to come up. The issue of parliamentarians are not going to come up. In fact, I mean, it's a very thorny issue, but it doesn't mean that we cannot deal with it as a country. But if ever a time is going to come in this country that the generality or our collective world would be that these people ought to be paid. One of the first things that I would, for instance, try to advocate in connection with that position would be that anybody who puts his hand to that money must be willing and ready and able at the end of the term of the husband to account to Ghanaians of what she took vis-a-vis the properties that he or she has acquired over the period. Because it's a democracy, we cannot give without taking back. And these are the kind of things that we will owe ourselves as to whether Ghanaians, now or in the future. But my view of the matter is that if we really want to deal with the matter, it requires an amendment to put them under Article 71. Alternatively, Parliament, in its wisdom, can enact a fresh law altogether, maybe not on the president and his wife, but on the wives of everybody, radio presenters, whatever. Anytime that we notice that you are doing a public service function and you've got a spouse who is supporting you, please, this is not laughing matter. Because if 1992 we didn't conceive of this one, then things have happened in this country that makes us recognize that it's not only about the president, but it's about his wife. And in 10 years' time, it may be the speaker and his wife. And another 5 years' time, it may be whoever and his wife. Because if you look at Article 71 officers, all of them have spouses, all of them, of course, except possibly anybody who's a Catholic priest, but all of them. So then the question then remains, whose wife doesn't support him? Is Mahama Yaga telling you that his wife does not support you? I know the wives of politicians, they suffer the kind of indignities that my wife will not want to suffer, because they have their constituents who are virtually over, I don't know how to call it, crashing them and stuff. Politicians' wives have to wake up and don't cook all kind of things. I ever worked with Nana Akufo-Addo. We've been to his residence, and you can match. I mean, the people that she attends to, with due respect to her office or her, I'm not too sure that any parliamentarian's wife does less. I'm being very honest with you. So let the thinking go out that if we really want to do it, it's for us as Ghanaians, and at the end of it, somebody, because if like Article 71, the first point of call for Article 71 is that all the people who have been named there, their salaries and allowances and money, call it whatever, is charged to the Consolidated Fund. The Consolidated Fund is the gold mine of Ghana. That is where, I mean, all our monies are started, which means that if Ghana grants to its needs and we cannot even do anything, pay for our exports and imports and all of that, there will still be money in the Consolidated Fund to pay for these people. It is the extent that the whole of the country have looked upon these people and determined their importance in the structure of things of this country. And that is why we decided that if for anything, they may be treated so differently from everybody. I think that a time has come. I don't personally believe that a time has come that the wives of any of the Article 71 people ought to be paid. Alternatively, the husbands of any of the Article 71 officers need to receive salaries because we recognize them. I think there is enough that they receive that should be able to take care of them. But my mouth no begun. Ghanaians can take that decision through a referendum. That's my view on the subject.
Thank you very much, Lawyer Kweku Paint. So I will take Lawyer Pong to wrap this this segment up, and then I will move on to the second part of the big issue where we deal with this big brouhaha on the agri sector, planting for food and jobs to be specific. Lawyer Pong, your quick thoughts on Article 71 and the calls to perhaps take a look at sections of the Constitution vis-a-vis a revisit of the recommendations of the Constitutional Review Commission.
All right, okay. But now, so I think maybe the lawyer's quick. It may not be so quick. I have been on record, and I want to restate that I do not also support the position that either former spouses of former presidents or spouses of current presidents and spouses of former vice presidents and current vice presidents should specifically be given money by the state. And that I want to repeat that. But the point here is that I have a copy of the emoluments report with me. I'll come to the technical aspect. But at page 61, it does not state that the president and vice president should specifically be given any money. Now it says spouses of sitting and former presidents and vice presidents should be catered for by the state as part of privileges extended to the president stroke vice president. As part of privileges extended to the president and vice president. It goes on to say that the administration of President Kufuor introduced extension of courtesies, including the payment of monthly allowances to spouses of former heads of state, president, vice president. Subsequent administrations have continued the gesture and even extended them to incumbent first and second ladies. The gesture remains purely humanitarian to support, in some cases, rehabilitate former first ladies. Thus, the committee recommends that the support extended to spouses and former presidents and vice presidents and former vice presidents be regularized and included in the privileges of president to former president and vice president and former vice president. We have accordingly included these allowances at same level as currently pertains. Now, if you go to table 7.3, and before I do that, So the point has to be made that this is talking about allowances that are, as it were, tied up to those of the president and the vice president. 7.3, I must admit, uses the word salary, where it mentions spouses of current president, the vice, and former president and the vice. So I do not believe that there is any difference between what will pertain if this report is finally implemented, and what pertains before this has for President Kufuor time today. So I'm not very sure I agree with Honorable Ayarita that the mere use of the word salary is what has created maybe the public aversion or if you like, the controversy in the general public. Because Article 3 says that for purposes of this article, and the steps as otherwise provided in this constitution, salary includes allowances, facilities, and privileges. So if at first the wife or the spouses of former president and vice president were receiving allowances, it is that in name only. The bottom line is money from the state, our taxes were being given to them. It doesn't matter whether you call it allowances or salary. And it was not only because they were living in the Flagstaff house or the Jubilee Flagstaff house, as I may call it. It's just that in addition to living with their husband, they have been given money collected from you and I, and perhaps from their own taxes too. It doesn't matter whether you call it emolument, gratuity, salary, or allowance. There's no difference. Money, that is the bottom line. That is being given to them from from President Kufuor as to date. Now, so that is when you read the document together, and I in support of what Nyapensu said, and just to vary it a bit. The time has really long come. It says President Kufuor's time. We've been giving the money to them. So it is not being, we are not asking that time shouldn't come. It has come since 2001 or so, when President Kufuor's administration started this thing up to date. We've been paying not only existing president and vice president and spouses, but even former presidents, spouses, and former vice presidential spouses. So that point has to be made clear. But one thing on the technical side, I think one problem I have with the report itself is that I think the committee, in my view, erred in issuing one report and addressing it to the president. Because Article 71 makes it very clear that if you take the Speaker, Deputy Speaker, Chief Justice, other justices of Superior Court, Auditor General, and the rest of them that have been listed, being in charge of the consolidated funds, shall be determined by the President on recommendations of a committee of not more than 5. Then when you come to the salaries and allowances of President, the Vice, and Chairman, and other members of Council of State, Ministers, and Deputy Ministers, the same committee must make the recommendation, but that report has to be separate and independent of the report that has been in which the recommendation for payment of salaries and allowances of members of parliament and the rest of them should contain. But what I have, which I believe is the only report, is a report that was issued. It says Presidential Committee on Emoluments, Article 71, office holders, January 2017 to 2020. And it is addressed to His Excellency Nana Midankwa Akufo-Addo. And it was this same report that contained salaries and allowances, recommendations of salaries and allowances of those whose salary should be determined by the President. And it also contains the very allowances that should be determined by Parliament. My point is that a separate report should have been issued to Parliament containing recommendations for salaries and allowances for the President and the others, and then a separate one issued to the Executive, because I think the framers of the Constitution, in anticipation of a situation where there could be scratch my back, perhaps with an extended nail or nails, and I'll scratch your back with a more extended fingernail. And so the report ought to have been given, one to Parliament for what Parliament should determine, and the other to the President. This is what is, I think, also fueling the suspicion that it appears the Executive in particular has influenced this kind of report. In future, I would suggest that if I'm right, a separate report should be given to these two bodies, Parliament and also to the Executive. And they should not know the content. And I think this matter are so far comes to technology, communication. Because in the past, you hardly heard of a report like this. I have checked. Some members of Parliament even said, oh, we were there when they said our F-Gracia, as we call it, has arrived. Even some others under Article 71 were just informed that their salaries and F-Gracia have been increased. And now we are talking about it not because a word like salary has been used instead of allowance, but it's because thanks to technology and the public activism in accountability processes, we have all come to know that these, for example, sponsors of former president and vice president are even being paid money, not just benefits that are accruable to their husbands. So that is the point I'm making. If you all agree that, and I'm happy that some have seen the need to return it. I mean, it is a personal choice, a personal decision. If others will keep it, that's fine. But it means that moving on, we will call on those who may have the benefit and privilege to serve for such committees. But of course, the committee only makes recommendations. Some are saying Parliament has never approved or ratified this report. If Parliament has, then if there is a blame, if you believe that they don't serve for Parliament, they don't due respect, and if Parliament has it, then they shouldn't approve of that particular provision. And others that we think are overburdening the public press.
All right, thank you very much, Lawyer Yaopong, for your thoughts on that. I will take a quick break, take just one quick comment from Honorable Ayariga, and then we will discuss planting for food and jobs. We'll be right back.
Welcome to SolarTech, the #1 manufacturer of innovative products in power protection. The SolarTech Ultima LCD UPS is a line interactive UPS with a unique LCD screen allowing you to monitor its performance and get the best from your electrical equipment. Monitor the battery level, input and output level, load level indicator, and overload indicator on your LCD screen. It provides a solid, reliable source of backup and has an inbuilt stabilizer which enables all computers and televisions to remain wholly protected. It comes in ranges of 650 VA to 2000 VA. Remember, stay original. Buy SolarTech. For more information, please visit www.solartechghana.com.gh. SolarTech, the power to protect.
No, I see a force up in the Guswara Bon Kaya saying, HBR people want to be, Namikuswa Kaya say, way a Yamana.
Tam Maria, I'm kind of Kufia, with no more Jamona Jamai, have a BI, right?
Number 7 shared by one of your born with Yabon in Temple of the Monaconia.
HD logo the bottom. Where you say HD local channels na mo hedo. And so pictures here clear. E 5 times better. As in other channels that could be show hormone. So go the mention man tram rock why. Oh, what the pictures. Who knows tomorrow? No, What a picture. What do AD plus decoder? Oh, multi TV and now Electroland agent PR. Natural local channels now. Oh, HD. The here is over there.
Star 879 hash.
Numbers from Kubo box and now the advert. AD channels now. Look at me.
Get an HD Plus decoder from now till the 9th of August for just 89.99 Ghana cedis and enjoy 3 months free subscription. Enjoy all the excitement and live sports action in the HD Plus Air Bosso Philippines promo. Promo lasts from 7th June to 9th August 2021. Visit hd-plus.com.gh or call 024-243-9872 for more info.
Half a nose for good things.
Your Sunday evenings will never be the same. Every Sunday at 7 p.m., make a date with me, Frema Dunyame.
And me, Nanatufo, for Upside Down on City TV. From setting the facts straight to intriguing conversations.
Some people still don't know who Stonebwoy is in Ghana, you know. Don't underestimate that. Maybe majority will, but some people. But I believe that so far so good. We are closing the gap.
You know, you don't go to school to believe in what school teaches you. You go to school so you have the key to unlock everything school teaches you.
Fun games and fantastic music. We make your Sunday night come alive.
Every Sunday at 7 p.m. on City TV.
Politics is scary. I've seen friends of mine go into politics, and some of the things they write, I call us, now you get sense. Like, you used to be one of us.
Yeah.
Expect the unexpected with Upside Down.
Upside Down is proudly sponsored by Vodafone.
Together, we can.
Welcome back to the big issue and discussing the second matter of agriculture. And for those of you who are wondering why, well, it's a big topic. Everybody in this country eats. Everybody in this country benefits from agric one way or the other. And the government in 2017 outdoored one of its flagship programs, the Planting for Food and Jobs, hailed by most watchers in the space as perhaps a game changer. And the first year or two seemed to have come with some success, but over the past 2 years there seem to have been significant challenges, and it is now beginning to show. Cracks are beginning to show. Fertilizer is in shortage across the country. Fertilizer suppliers are owed money. People in the poultry sector are complaining because now they cannot find the maize to feed their birds. We have a bit of avian flu, but that is not even a matter for the agric. You can't really blame the ministry for that, but they are still dealing with that particular issue. People are asking questions. What is happening? Cocoa is also in the mix. So there's a lot happening in the agric space. And it was a bit, we had been discussing this, and then on Friday, agric minister basically sent out a distress call. And for those of you who read the front page of the Daily Graphic on Friday, this was his appeal. Planting for Food struggles for survival. Flagship program partners owed huge debts. And according to the story, he granted this interview to Savarius Kalideri. The Agric Minister, Dr. Owusu Friakuto, has expressed worry about the sustainability of the flagship program due to a large debt owed partners of the program. He said importers of fertilizer under the PFJ were under siege by their financiers because out of 940 million Ghana cedis debt owed dealers in fertilizer and other subsidies since the beginning of last year, the government had been able to pay only 250 million Ghana cedis. Describing the prospects of the flagship program as precarious, that's an extreme word to use, the minister said as a result of the high indebtedness to the fertilizer producers and importers, they are defaulted with their banks and had to pay penalties on their letters of credit. Now, according to him, he says suppliers have two problems. First, they are facing the rising price on the world market. And secondly, monies that are owed them for import supply to farmers in the 2020 cropping activities. Coach, as we speak, there is still over 680 million Ghana cedis to be paid by the Ministry of Finance to these suppliers, and so they have not been able to import the fertilizer, hence the shortage. Now, if you go to modern Ghana, for instance, on Tuesday, they covered basically what was a near riot in Binduri, where farmers were asking for fertilizer to help grow their crops for the minor crop season that was approaching. So, basically, if you've been paying attention to the news, yes, there seems to be a big problem in the agri sector. So we're trying to figure out what it is. And I'll be doing that with a former Deputy Agri Minister, Dr. Yakubu Alasan. Good morning. Thank you for joining us in. We'll be doing this with Charles Nyaba, so Head of Programs and Advocacy at Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana. Said Mubarak will also be with us. Franklin Kujo is still with us. And we'll be joined by the CEO of Agribusiness, the Chamber of Agribusiness Ghana as well, Anthony S.K. Morrison. He's already in with us, so we will try and see where the difficulties are. But I'll start with the specialist here, Dr. Yakubu Alasan, before I get to the business side.
Yes.
Were you surprised by when you saw this headline coming from the Agri Minister, basically saying planting for food and jobs is struggling?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't surprised. Because as a country, we have always known that the basic problem confronting the sector, agricultural sector, has always been investment.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, government is the largest investor in the agri sector formally. And government will always renege in payment of outstanding debts that are owed business people who supply or deliver inputs to farmers. I mean, if you accumulated debt up to nearly 1 billion cedis for a flagship program of government, that in itself is very surprising, because that is supposed to be the flagship program of the sitting government. So I would imagine that what makes it a flagship program is that there will be resources available throughout the entire chain, from farm to table. And so if you look at the minister's own, I wouldn't call it a blueprint, but his own manual, that manual with a small m, that he was using for the planting for food and jobs. Yes, there were monies allocated to all the different steps that was supposed to make us get a success. But he has been the luckiest agri minister that I have known. Yes, because most of the resources that he needed to get the Planning for Food and Jobs program were already in place by the previous government of President Mahama. One, there was already a $95 million mechanization program to bring in farm machinery, 3,000 pieces of farm machinery for the green revolution that President Mahama promised in 2017 if he won the elections. Two, the Canadian facility of MAG, Modernizing Agriculture in Ghana, was already signed and delivered $125 million into this country. Those were part of that money was what delivered all the white pickups you saw with Planting for Food and Jobs insignia on them. Those were part of that facility. Number three, we had already signed an agreement with the African Development Bank to deliver $30 million for the livestock and poultry sector, which was also there. But the minister converted it into what is now called Savannah Agricultural Productivity Program, SAPIP, which is sitting in Tamale, and many other facilities that were already there. So in fact, the minister came and met an already cooked meal, and what was left was simply the administrative and other management resources to get going. In fact, the fertilizer and seed subsidy programs were ongoing, just that they needed to increase it, etc.
Which he did.
Yes. Unfortunately, the minister started with particularly the seed program by importing seed to start the plan for food. So he needed to at least use that initial year as a preparatory year so that the program could kickstart and get going. So if all these facilities were available, and today we are where we are, where the minister said that, oh, Plan for Food was a success just after one season, and that the people in northern Ghana were now riding more motorbikes, and they had more money to roof their houses with zinc, etc., which itself was a complete controversy. And then only 2 years or so later, such a flagship program of government is struggling for a look into government funds. I really get very surprised, even though I knew that based on the steps that were taken then, we could easily run into this type of situation.
But it's a question, and if you might be the wrong person to ask this question. So, because I was going to ask, my good friend Kojo was asking, if we actually brought in almost 1 billion Ghana cedis worth of fertilizer into this country, how do you hide and lose basically 1 billion Ghana cedis? Because if you break it down into numbers, you are looking at a lot of fertilizer.
Absolutely, yes.
So did they actually come, or some came, and what has happened? But we'll try and get to the bottom of that. But Mr. Morrison, you are from the Chamber of Agribusiness Ghana. From the business side of things, prices are going up. We expect prices to go even higher because we are being told the rains are irregular. Import prices have gone up for the inputs that you are using. Fertilizer is scarce right now, so we don't even know what is happening with that one. We're encouraging young people to go into agric. What's happening?
Thank you very much, my good friend, and very good morning to your viewers. I think that the problem is quite erratic as we speak, even within the business circle, because it makes access to finance very difficult now. There is no clarity in investment pathways because a lot of people do not know what is going on, and this does not also augur well for investment within the private sector, especially within the agribusiness industry. Talking to any bank right now will tell you, okay, hold on, let's see how the industry is looking so we can have that confidence to invest or to give you credit. Yes, the COVID has been very problematic. We've seen prices that have shot up as a result of the freight, moving goods from other parts of the world to Ghana, and also production in itself across most factories around the world have also gone down as a result of companies have to readjust themselves and be more effective and efficient and to reduce wastage because no one knows where orders are going to come from. On the same level, we've seen reduction in productivity in terms of raw materials across board because obviously inputs and other critical essentials were just really not available. Now, on the PFJ, I think that, let me state clearly that the PFJ is just a name, but the concept itself is not new. It's not a novelty.
Sure.
It is something that has already been running. We have various farmer-based organizations in the northern region, Afram Plains, BA, Ashanti, that have organized farmers into smaller holder farmers and providing them with various agronomical support, inputs, finance, and several other things. So it was a name that, it was a project that, for instance, you can mention Shinkafa group. These are quite large groups that have continuously been supported by private sector. And the major reason why this PFJ is failing, one, the recovery rate is 0.
Recovery rate of what?
Of the inputs. Okay. The inputs, the subsidies, the credits that is given to the farmers. I mean, Doc mentioned the AFDB, the SAPI project. SAPI project was 70% last year. But just a few weeks ago, because the recovery rate is very low, now the SAPI project is now 30%. AFDB said, no, you have recorded very low recovery, so we can't give you 70%. We can only give you 30%.
Wow.
Yes. So, you see, when you have a system that the private sector is already running, and you pick it and run it as a political project, you have to bring in the private sector actors to deepen the smooth implementation. And I think that we are where we are today because the minister and the team failed to listen. There have been a lot of calls, lot of innovative suggestions. For instance, the smuggling of the fertilizers out of the country.
That's a big problem. The president spoke about this week.
We spoke about the fact that can we input some digital system into the fertilizer where we put a digital coin, just as we monitor the vehicles, we track vehicles, we put tracking devices in every, so when you buy 5 bags of fertilizer, I mean, every farmer is entitled to 5 acres. So if you are buying 20 bags, you bring back the coin that is inside, then you get whatever you are supposed to get in return. But if we had done this, we would know that this quantity of fertilizers are all being traced to this particular destination. But as it stands now, nobody knows where these 1 billion fertilizers have gone to. Because the current fertilizer penetration rate in the country is less than 30%.
Less than 20%.
Yes, if we actually use 1 billion cedis worth of fertilizer, our productivity rate should be high. Our yields per acre should be very high. But as it stands now, no, it's still very low. So it brings to fore a lot of begging questions that the ministry have to answer. And we remembered an instance where we told the minister to stop the export of the grains and cereals out of the country. He
said this because we were told that we were producing an excess, so we could export.
What? We told the minister that, look, we need to have a lot of reserves for our poultry farmers. Just Thursday, the Chamber of Agribusiness led the associations, various associations that are within the poultry industry to meet the Parliamentary Select Committee on Food, Cocoa Affairs. And we made our points known to them. The fact is that if we had saved enough of grains for our poultry industry, the poultry industry wouldn't be collapsing now. In fact, the poultry industry is almost on its knees. And in the next 2 weeks, if most of the critical farms don't get any of the critical support, trust me, we may have to be buying a crate of egg at 30 cedis or 35.
Wow.
Yes, we did a lot of analysis when we made them.
Share the analysis.
Okay, so for instance, I will share what is needed now because that is the most important thing. Now, currently, each farmer is losing 26.2% of production as we speak, because the price of maize, which used to be 65 cedis for 50 kg, has now gone up to 140. That's only maize. Wheat bran that used to sell at 18.24 is now being sold the highest at 40. Soya have jumped up to 240 from 85 cedis. And the same applies to the likes of lysine, methionine, decalciums, vitamins, immune boosters, all have jumped up. Freight have jumped up, duty at the port have gone up, transportation have gone up, labor on the farms have also gone up. So you understand, and the poultry industry is the biggest employer within the agriculture value chain.
Oh.
Yes. I mean, Doc will attest, the livestock industry is the biggest employer. And I don't want to only to speak for the poultry industry. I also want to link it to the aquaculture and also the piggery industry. They are all facing the same problem because they all use virtually everything that is used in the poultry industry. So our livestock industry is virtually on its knees now as we speak. Now, for the poultry industry, the farmer is making a profit 80-week cycle when they do layers. Now, at that level, every farmer is losing 17.25% annually.
Wow.
And if the farmer is supposed to make gain by just 1.11%, they should currently be selling eggs at 22 cedis, 26 cedis, at least 22 cedis. And if they are supposed to make 20% profit, as in every normal business, would have projected that I invest and the least expected profit should be 20%, they should be selling nothing less than 30 cedis. Yes, that tells you that the aggregator or the middleman, before you, the consumer, should be buying at least between 35 to 40. That is when it makes normal sense. Because I also have the figures from the European Union intelligence desk here. I'll share with you how much they are producing, and you see how much people are selling their birds for in Ghana, and how much the frozen chicken is being sold in Ghana, and do the comparison. Now, between now to December, and we made it clear to the Parliamentary Select Committee on Food and Agriculture, we will need 5 shiploads of maize.
Between now and when?
Between now till December, 5 shiploads of maize, which is valued at the current market price of 280 million Ghana cedis. And government ought to subsidize this at 150 million cedis. That means that we should be buying 50 kg of maize from the government at 60 Ghana cedis, and not at the prevailing rate of 140 cedis. However, in total, the total quantity of maize required is 125,000 metric tons. That is what is required from now till December. That means that we will need simply 2.5 million bags of maize. Anything short of that is a disaster. And this is only for the poultry industry. I've not made the calculation for the piggery. I've not made the calculation for the aquaculture industry yet.
Okay, hold on for me. Let me talk to Charles Nyaba, Head of Programs and Advocacy at Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana. Charles, morning. Charles. Charles, if you can unmute your microphone, please.
Okay. Good morning.
Yes, thank you, Charles, for joining us. I'm just listening to the numbers being shared by Farmer Morrison here, who's the CEO of the Chamber of Agribusiness Ghana. I'm sure he's somebody you would know. And the numbers he's revealing are earth-shattering. Primarily between now and December, we need 2.5 million bags of maize if we are to keep the poultry sector alive. Are you going to be able to find it?
Thank you so much. Let me say good morning to my colleagues at the stadium and the farmers who are listening. I think I've done extensive discussion with the poultry farmers. Last week I was in Doma, and most of the farmers there now take the maize from Cote d'Ivoire. Because if you look at the prices that is being sold in Ghana, it's extremely high for them to be able to purchase and sell their eggs and make profit. Apart from the prices, there is no maize available in the Ghanaian market as we speak. So for now, it's a problem. But from last week to date...
Wait, Charles, wait. People will struggle with this a bit. Where did all the maize go? A year and a half ago, we were asking and we were being told we had a lot of these things. Where did they go?
You know, for 2020 farming season, so many things happened. One, contrary to the claims by the Ministry of Food and Agriculture that we have surplus maize, my checks didn't support that at the time, and I think we made our position very clear on that. Secondly, what happened is that most of our neighboring countries, Burkina, Niger, Togo, Nigeria, most of the traders around the period of November, March were all in Ghana buying maize from us. So maybe if you put these factors together, might have contributed to the shortage that we are experiencing now. The domestic production, the challenges that we face in 2020 were two. At the beginning of the season, there was a drought across the country, from the forest zone, transitional zone to savanna zone. Most farmers could not actually plant, and those who planted, most maize farms got wilted because the rains were not coming. Around September the same year, that was last year, there was serious floods in the northern part of the country that affected most maize farmers, and the majority of them actually lost their farms. So you put all these factors together, might have contributed to the shortage of the maize that we have currently. Now, as to whether we'll be able to supply these quantities from now to December, for the southern sector, this year we face a little bit challenge for the major season production. Around Brown-Harford, which is one of the major maize producing areas, and then Afran Plains in the southern part of the country, they all started their season. And from March to June, the rains were no good at all. The rains came when they planted, there was a break. So most maize farms actually dried up. They just started with the minor season, and I think that one will be better. The northern part of the country in recent times that actually supplied greater quantities of maize, the season actually started well, even though between the period of April to May ended, we were crying for the rains which were not coming. But the moment we entered June, I think the rain started coming. Even this morning, it rained everywhere. Most farmers are able to plant. And so far, if you see the crops, there is potential that we are likely to have higher yields. That will be dependent on the availability of fertilizer. One of the things that contributed to our growth in the cereal industry in recent years has to do with, one, the seeds. And I think we should all join hands in thanking National Association of Seed Growers, NASTA, for coming on board to supply farmers with improved seeds and also educating them on the need to actually use improved seeds. Coupled with that is the planting for food and job, of which 80% of the budget on that is on fertilizer. So all this contributed to increase in the cereal supply in recent years. One of the things that might affect our projections for this year, even though the season started well, has to do with the recent crisis of fertilizer. I had some conversation with the director of crops. I don't know whether we are still coming there. And I realized that a lot of measures have been put in place. Yesterday, the day before yesterday, and today, my checks found that we had over 80 trucks actually move to Upper East and Upper West. So if this trend continues, I mean, we are likely to actually see better performance in the northern part of the country. And if that happens, we might be able to supply the quantities that Farmer Morrison was talking about.
Wow. Interesting. But on this matter of fertilizers, okay, Farmer Morrison, you wanted to say something?
Yes. You see, the analysis being made by Charles, I have problems with it. Because already, the 2019 National Best Farmer, who did 19,000 last year, is only doing 1,000 acres this year. So even if the fertilizers gets there now, it's too late for anybody to plow a land and plant. People have drastically reduced their acreage, size of their acres, as we speak. And you see, critically, Honorable is aware, Tumu, Sisala East and Sisala West, they have banned the fertilizers, PFJ, in those areas. How are they going to, because of smuggling and unable to account for some of the fertilizers that went there? But that is the major maize production zone in the country. So how do you expect that in the midst of all this, we should still be expecting to make the yields? Yes, of course, if yields will go up, it will go up based on the current acreage that is being produced, that is being farmed, but not on the expected production in terms of the total acreage that is available to be produced.
That's an interesting point that he has made, Mr. Nyaba, in that the difficulties, of course, when you put all of it together, people are growing on a smaller scale than they normally would. So that would affect some of the assumptions that you are making, right?
Yeah, I think, I understand his concerns. But I speak based on the experience that I have on the field. You know, first I try to turn my laptop so that you see the farms. I'm on the farm. I'm actually speaking from the farm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the problem we have with the fertilizer and land size. You know, when we started the season, we least expected that we were going to have challenges with the fertilizer. So to conclude that farmers reduce their farm sizes because of the difficulties we have with the fertilizer, I have a problem with that because farmers have already plowed their farms and majority have planted. So if we will have problems in terms of farm sizes relating to fertilizer, then that will be inability of farmers to get enough fertilizer to apply. But it won't be the fact that because of the difficulty we have with fertilizer, farmers are going to reduce their farm sizes. Now, there's one thing that we need to bear in mind, that there are many people who actually joined the farmers' fraternity in this year due to the gains that we made last year. I personally encourage over 30 lecturers from University of Ghana who came to do a block farm in the Fumbisi valleys and they are planting rice. There are different people who contacted me who were originally not farmers. They are former sector employees who actually came and then we linked them to farmers to do farms for them. So I can count a number of new farmers who came on board. Last year, I did 50 acreages of maize in the Kintampo. This year, in addition to the 50 acres, I just finished planting 70 acres of maize in the Upper East region. And that's where I'm currently there planting. And there are different farmers who also did similar work. So to me, I don't want to start on a negative note.
Certainly.
I'm very hopeful that looking at what is going on, once we are able to address the issue of fertilizer shortages, and then we make it available to farmers. Farmers are gradually changing from seeing farming as a way of life to farming as a business. And if you come and you see, the competition for fertilizer is not necessarily because the fertilizer is also limited. It is also because farmers have now come to realize that they need to apply fertilizer. In those days, no farmer is actually interested in using right quantity of fertilizer on the farms. But just like I said earlier, NASDAQ have done a lot of work in terms of educating farmers on the need to use improved seeds and correlation between improved seeds and fertilizer application. And that has actually brought a lot of positives to the way farmers are doing things. Now, Farmer Morrison also mentioned the issue of smuggling. You see, I want to educate the public. At certain time, we make certain conclusions, and you go to the field, and that is not the case. We started a season. Actually, the fertilizer is not yet available. Fertilizer is not in the market. So this media report that is going through that, oh, the fertilizer has been smuggled, I don't think it's entirely true. The fertilizer is not available. It's now coming. And the quantities that are coming, it's not even enough for the farmers. Look, I brought 6 trucks of fertilizer. There was a queue throughout the morning till evening when the fertilizer got finished. And every farmer who come to buy, I encourage them to get their farmer's ID card for us to validate that they are real farmers before we buy for them. There was a report last week that a truck of fertilizer was smuggled and it was heading to Burkina Faso. We all followed the truck and then we went and saw that the fertilizer was loaded in a warehouse closer to the Paga border. And that dealer has been there for years. So certain times I think the media want to make news, but let's try to validate the kind of information we put out there. For the smuggling,
but hold on, Charles. Yeah. The president was in the region on Wednesday or so.
Yeah.
And yes, and basically just told the chiefs that the fertilizer has been smuggled. I'm begging you to be vigilant. So which fertilizer is the president talking about?
No, the president is speaking based on the media reports that he got.
I don't think but Charles, I disagree that the president is addressing chiefs on a state visit based on media reports.
The point I'm making is that I am a member of the fertilizer watchdogs. We are monitoring the fertilizer movement. And last year, I put out the figures of the number of trucks that have been smuggled to the neighboring country. And I'm telling you that, look, the subsidy supplying of the subsidized fertilizer had just started last 2 weeks. Even though the directives was given by the ministry for the companies to start distributing the subsidized fertilizer, they were not doing it because they are saying that the 48 Ghana cedis that they were supposed to supply the NPK, it was too low for them to do it until we held a meeting and agreed that they should adjust the prices to 53 Ghana cedis. And that was just done 3 days ago. Then the fertilizer started moving. You know, so the point I'm making is that there were a lot of reports that went on. You can speak to I'm closely in touch with the dealers and the district department of agriculture, the police commanders. Look, when I brought my trucks, the 6 trucks that I brought 2 days ago, the police escorted the fertilizer from Bolga until it got to the Brongo police station. They were there, monitored the fertilizer, and they escorted the fertilizer back to the warehouse. So they were there, they stood there and waited for all the fertilizer to be offloaded before they left. So unlike previously, where a truck of fertilizer can just move from Ghana to Burkina Faso, that is not done. So if people are buying it in smaller quantities, putting it together and taking it across the borders, that one I cannot dispute. But the current arrangement is saying that the fertilizer will have to get to the warehouse, be offloaded before the dealer can start selling it. And that is the reality on the ground.
Okay.
I told the media people who are putting out the report that, look, they should give us evidence. Because I'm there, that's why I'm in Napa East. And I have people at the borders who are monitoring this fertilizer. We formed a fertilizer watchdog team who are monitoring the movement of the fertilizer. And last year, we were those who were putting the figures there, the number of trucks that were smuggled. I'm here to protect the fertilizer for Ghanaian farmers. So why would I be defending retailers that they haven't smuggled fertilizer when it is smuggled? You know, and this afternoon we are having a meeting with all the district directors of agriculture and all the retailers in the region to discuss about these issues that are coming up. And we are trying to see how best we can put in measures to ensure that now that the fertilizer is flowing, people do not take advantage to send it across the borders. So that is the situation on the field as we speak.
Okay, it's quite interesting, Charles, because if I am looking at the minister's interview yesterday, and he has quite a few quotes. So it disagrees a bit with what you are saying, and he's the minister. So he says, for instance, currently we have evidence of farmers in the Upper West, Upper East and North regions saying that they've had to cut back on their acreage because they cannot get fertilizer to apply. And for the smaller acreages that they produce too, there is no fertilizer. Again, in that same interview yesterday, he talks about smuggling. So we've had the president and we've had the minister as well.
Yeah, the point I'm making is that, you see, all these statements are coming from farmers. If a farmer tells you that I have to cut back my acreages because I can't get fertilizer, you know, it doesn't, you don't say it. Because once you plant, you have planted. You didn't plant, you always plant before you expect fertilizer. Fertilizer doesn't come before the planting season starts. As I speak, most farmers are plowed. So if they tell you that they have to cut back their acreages because they can't get fertilizer, it means they've already plowed and planted. You don't buy fertilizer and wait to be planted. So they made those statements because they are meeting a politician, and they have to do that for the politician to try his best to get them the fertilizer. You know, and then like I said, I don't want a situation where anybody will take advantage and accuse people of smuggling of fertilizer. Because sometimes the quantities of fertilizer that actually get refilled is not what is reported. But we make the impression that, see, oh, this quantity of fertilizer got refilled and it lost or it went into the neighboring country. We all need to be very smart in our analysis so that nobody will use smuggling as excuse to give a lower quantity of fertilizer to a region or a district than is expected.
Okay, that's a fair point. So some level of hope also coming from Charles Nyaba based on what he sees. He is head of programs and advocacy with the Peasant Farmers Association. Dr. Akubu, yes. Charles is predicting some restoration to normalcy a bit.
Yeah.
Based on what is happening now. He says fertilizer is coming.
Yeah. I don't think we're on different pages, except to say that we're speaking from individual experiences that were extrapolating to be the general. And that should not be the situation. We should be looking at what is totally the picture rather than our individual experiences. If we are putting our individual experiences across, 2 days ago was when I planted my maize farm, 30 acres. And I had to delay the planting for 2 days because my manager was in Tamale Town searching for fertilizer. I planted with a machine, so I have to apply fertilizer at the same time. We had to delay for 2 days so that we can get fertilizer to go and plant. After the 2 days, we had the fertilizer, but not at the government subsidy price. We had to buy it at the open market price at 140, 150 bucks, and so on. So let's be clear that farmers are rational business people. They are rational. Even if he's doing half an acre, he's a rational businessman. He looks at the outlook of his input needs and see whether they are available before he goes to to clear his land. He doesn't wait. He doesn't go and plow and plant everything and hope that there will be fertilizer coming. No farmer does that. I beg to differ from maybe his situation is very different. But farmers sit and weigh their resources before they go to the field. And so when farmers go to the field in a measured way, because they have to cut back, because they want the little fertilizer that will be available to satisfy the little acreage that they have. It's a rational decision to take. And so if there's a delay in bringing that fertilizer, that makes it even more complicated. I don't know whether I make sense. Yeah. Because the government is promising subsidized fertilizer. So the farmer says, I'm going to do 10 acres because my resources can buy the subsidized fertilizer for that. Then at the time that he's going to apply the plant, the subsidized fertilizer is not available.
So it's going to buy the real market price.
It's probably available only at real market price. He has to double the amount of money he's going to invest in fertilizer. And that will inform how much crop he can apply the fertilizer to. So this is pure business, and nobody needs to really try to educate farmers on that. Let me also say that sometimes we confuse high yields with high production. You see, high yields is usually the amount of the amount of production you will get per unit of resource, okay, that you invest. Yeah. High production is the totality of what you get at the end. So it is a fact that when fertilizer is not available at the right time, it will reflect on the productivity of the farm. Let's not run away from that fact. And the issue of smuggling is a devil that has been with us from way back in time. It's not something that started today, smuggling. The only thing that in the context of discussing smuggling, we sometimes blame farmers, such as the president was doing 2 days ago. It's the farmer who needs the fertilizer. He cannot be the one smuggling it to a neighboring country. It must be the people in charge of the fertilizer distribution who must be involved in that. Not the farmer. Just a minute. Okay. And let me also add that in an audit report of Planting for Food and Jobs itself, $12 million worth of fertilizer could not be accounted for. $12 million worth of fertilizer. If the fertilizer was in this country, I'm sure they'll find it in warehouses. So it is the fact that the fertilizer is being smuggled. And the issue of taking a fertilizer truck to a police station, etc., what is the law? There is a law on fertilizer and its distribution passed by Parliament in the Plants and Fertilizer Act. It is there. How fertilizer should move from the Tema port to the district office there. And the law requires that actors in the chain monitor how much fertilizer is arriving in each district office and report to the minister on a regular basis, so that all the issue of where there's which area is there fertilizer shortage, which is where there is so much fertilizer, exactly, sorry, what is the law that somebody has to take his fertilizer to a police station to pack it?
But extraneous circumstances might require extraneous
I agree.
solutions. So that is his solution.
I agree. So that is why, but we should not ignore the law in the process. We should agree that the law should be made to work. And let me just.
I want to talk to somebody in the seed side of this before you come in, and then Farmer Morrison also comes in.
All right.
So,
can I just make a very short interjection to what my senior colleague said?
Charles, I beg you, just hold this for me because I've struggled to get Seydou, so that I'll come back to you and then you make that correction for me. That input. Seydou Mubarak is with the executive. Is an executive council member of the Seed Trading Association. Seydou, morning.
Good morning. And good morning to your panelists.
Thank you as well. I see you've parked your car. It's good. we are discussing we are discussing the difficulties in planting for food and jobs. I've spoken to the business side of this, the Chamber of Agribusiness. I have a former Deputy Agri Minister who is also a farmer. I have Charles Nyaba, who is a farmer and also head of programs and advocacy at the Peasants Farmers Association of Ghana. From where you sit, the struggles that have been described in the agri sector, are they real? And at what scale do you see them? And is there any hope, at least for this season?
Okay. Let me say good morning once again to your panelists and your viewers and listeners. I supply Doc, the former Deputy Minister, seed through Dr. Canton recently, so I know he's doing some farming. Planting for food and jobs. Over the past 4 years, I think all of us have seen the successes and the euphoria it has created within the agriculture space in Ghana. For instance, coming from the seed sector, we have seen a major revive of the seed sector. That has to do with outgrowers or seed producers being very active than before. I remember in 2017 when the program started, we couldn't even meet the demand of seed for the program, and quite a number of the seeds were imported. So this created a business opportunity for seed companies and seed growers, and also our research institutions such as SARI, Savannah Agriculture Research Institute, Crop Research Institute. All of us came on board where foundation seed, breeder seeds productions were increased within the last 4 years. That of certified seeds have been increased. Just Dr. Nyaba just mentioned it. The National Seed Traders Association over the past years have done so much work when it comes to education of farmers on the usage of certified seeds. And I must say, through the program, we've been able to increase the usage of certified seeds from 11% to currently about 54% of certified seeds being used in the country. And so I want to say the program has brought a lot of positives. I started to say that this year we had some few challenges that had to do with the delay in payments. It hasn't been so, but this year payments have been in a bit delayed than expected, because over the past 4 years we've always had payments between 4 to 6 months after supply where government makes the payments. And but this year it hasn't been the case. It's been a year now that we have received payments. That coupled with a number of challenges we are having, I just wanted to also make some little clarities. Farmer Morrison mentioned recoveries in the planting for food and jobs. Actually, when it comes to the planting for food and jobs, there's no recovery. If he's talking about the SAPI program, there is recovery. But the actual planting for food and jobs, where subsidized inputs are given to farmers, we don't have anything like recovery in that sort. Then again, we're having to talk about the issues of maize within the system. And most of the times when issues of smuggling comes, we make mention of the Sisala East and West. But then we fail to always acknowledge that Sisala East and West is also the maize hub. And as we speak, Sisala East and West is still feeding the country. There's no maize shortage in the country. It's something that we have to make clear. prices of produce and commodities have gone up. That is a reality. It has gone up so much, but it doesn't mean there's complete shortage of maize in the system.
So then why are the poultry farmers complaining?
400 cedis a bag.
One of the major reasons they are complaining is on the pricing. And then again, we're also having competitive prices from the neighboring countries, which is one of the issues I wanted to raise for us to say it needs to be checked. You have in Burkina Faso, Togo, coming into the country to mob a lot of our produce at very higher prices that the locals are not able to buy or are not able to compete. For instance, take the issue of soya bean. Between January and February, we had a lot of Asians, the Indians coming into the country, doubling the price that the local processors were offering to farmers. And of course, as we know now, farmers are business people. So whoever offers them a higher price, they are willing to give to that person. So a lot of the local processors were really struggling, and that is actually causing kind of an artificial shortage within the system.
Hello, Sedu. Well, I think his connection. But so that's also an interesting perspective. So he says from where he sits as a seed producer. Yeah. Okay, Sedu.
Yeah.
Yes. Go on. So just to get your point right, you are saying, one, there is maize. It's just that the price has become a problem because we are having competitive prices from our neighbors in the sub-region who buy, but there are also concerns that, well, they buy and then resell to us back in Ghana. Is that something you're aware of? Well, I will try and get Seydou back because that was also something that was coming up. But Charles, let me take your intervention now, and then I'll come to Farmer Morrison. Charles.
Okay. So, yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. I'll take your intervention now, and then I'll come to Farmer Morrison.
I thought that we were talking about 2021, 2022 food or maize supply. You know, so if you talk about a report that suggests that 2 million worth of fertilizer was missing, that is in reference to last year. We just started the season. You see, we need to be specific with the issues we are talking about. We are talking about this season that we've just started. Yeah, so I want to make that clear. Secondly, the point I was making is that government promised farmers of subsidized fertilizer, available subsidized fertilizer to them with prices. So every farmer, businessman, I have started planning based on what government told me. You know, so the fertilizer supply will come after you've done your plowing and planting. So as the time farmers were doing their plowing and planting, it wasn't, the fertilizer issue never came up. It only came up after they were now looking for the fertilizer and it's not available. So we need to make that point very clear.
Okay.
Now, if you say that delay in coming in of the fertilizer will affect yields because they will apply the fertilizer late, I completely agree. Because if you look at the valleys, for instance, we have to take the fertilizer there before the rains even start, when it's not even ready for you to apply. Because if the rain starts, you cannot even carry the fertilizer across the rivers that are there to get to the farms. So that one is agreed. But if it is that farmers will have to reduce their farm sizes because of difficulties we have with the subsidized fertilizer, that's where I have problem with. Now let me also put this, because my colleague Seydou was making a point. Our focus has been on fertilizer. But see, fertilizer goes with seeds.
Yeah.
Because if you even apply fertilizer on bad seed, you are likely not to get the yields that you are expecting. But our checks, and then also working with NASDAQ, I'm a member of NASDAQ, and I'm also a member of the farmer group who also consume the seeds and the fertilizer, found that in 2021, this season that we have, most farmers, there's a drastic increase in consumption of improved seeds by farmers. So farmers who would, under normal circumstances, use grains now will prefer to use improved seeds. So we have majority of farmers actually using the improved seeds. So if we are able to get the fertilizer as the companies promise, and then the ministry also promise, to me, I don't think it's late. Before I came on the program, I've spoken to AMD, and they made it clear to me that, look, they still have enough stock that they have started releasing on the market, and they still have more on the highways coming, and they are thinking that everything being equal, they will be able to actually supply enough to the farmers. The same to other fertilizer companies. So as a stand, I'm not saying that everything is okay. We have difficulties in almost all the districts in terms of available fertilizer. But it is not the case that we lost hope there won't be fertilizer. Now let me come back to the point of smuggling. You see, if you talk of smuggling, the district, before a fertilizer is released to a retailer, the regional Department of Agriculture and the regional minister will have to confirm that fertilizer before they release it to go to the district. When you go to the district will have to take a data of that fertilizer, that track, before they release it to get to the retailer. The time there were reports that fertilizer was being smuggled in the Congo, I went to the district Department of Agriculture to find out how many subsidized fertilizer has come to the district. And according to him, I was only the first person to bring in subsidized fertilizer at that point. So I just want us to be very careful with the way we speculate information. Otherwise, we put up information that suggests something which is not real on the field. But I'm not also disputing the fact that we are currently struggling to get enough subsidized fertilizer. But I'm only hopeful, based on the promise given by the companies and the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, that from this week and next week, we are going to get enough fertilizer for our farmers. So I'm just hoping if that is done, it will help. Now, secondly, let me also make this point. I don't know whether it has already been discussed because I came in late. The payment is a serious issue, and I think there's disconnect between the vision of Ministry of Food and Agriculture and that of Ministry of Finance. Whilst Ministry of Food and Agriculture is doing everything possible to ensure that farmers get enough fertilizer and subsidized fertilizer and improved seeds for their farms, Ministry of Finance are not having the same vision for the sector. So it is the reason why, as we speak, they've not been able to pay 30% of fertilizer companies who supplied fertilizer last year. The same to NASDAQ members who also supply improved seeds. I think we should actually thank we, the seed suppliers, like we, the NASDAQ members, for doing our best to do this. But I want to use the platform to urge Ministry of Finance that the only way we are able to bring the economic back to life will be through agriculture. You realize that when COVID affected all the other sectors, agriculture performance in 2020 still saw positive growth. So it means that when we put more attention to agriculture sector, things will get better. But Ministry of Finance are not actually having the same vision as that of the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. And I want to urge them that what they own, the seed companies and the fertilizer companies, they should try as much as possible to pay them so that we'll be able to supply enough food for this country.
Thank you, Charles. But that would actually be a serious level of dissonance, to have the Agric Ministry and the Finance Ministry on a different trajectory when it comes to, because what they go with each other. Finance and Agric, one supports the other. They support each other. Without Finance, Agric won't thrive. Without Agric, Finance will also have problems. Looking at what it gains from Agric. So, Farmer Morrison, let me come to you. I'll be taking closing words on this one, and then we go.
So
it looks like you're listening to Charles and what he's saying. Maybe the year is not a washout because he says the fertilizer is coming. He has found 80, so maybe you also get some, and then Dr. Yakubu also gets some.
Well, I think Charles is not officially the spokesperson for.
No, he's not. Don't go there.
But some of the statements he's made, maybe it's something that we'll have to look at it. However, I want to say that. Seidu made a statement in view of my earlier remarks. The first 2 years, there were recovery of the PFJ, which was very low. And that was what I was alluding to. And you see, the PFJ, right from onset, its implementation had some shaking grounds. We asked that a number of things been addressed at that point, but we did not see most of these things. Now, payment, of course, to fertilizer companies and all that. Doc spoke about the fact that the Modernizing Agriculture Fund that was used for the PFJ, I think it has run out now, and the government will have to find money to pay. So these were some of the initial things we stated. Was the PFJ sustainable? What is the exit strategy for the PFJ? And will government find enough money to continue to run PFJ? And if some of these things were addressed from a business perspective, we wouldn't be in the position where we are now. And you see, as an industry too, we do not have an emergency preparedness strategy. So as a country, you would have expected that agriculture sector will have what we refer to as the social pandemic intervention policy. That's when challenges like this comes in with regards to COVID, with regards to climate change, drought, and many other things. We could have a fund that could easily be used to support some of this. You see, people think farming is just for farmers, but they've forgotten that when farmers don't farm, there is food insecurity in the country, and that also is a national security issue. Yeah. So we should approach this on a national discourse and not to be looking at it as though farming is different from the rest of the economy. When it's about power or it's about telecommunication, it's about something everybody is talking about it.
Okay, I get that point. I'll come back to. Let me just take a quick break. We come back. We'll wrap up on planting for food and jobs, the way forward.
One amazing day, one amazing event. It's the return of the biggest gathering of Ghanaians in the diaspora, Ghana Party in the Park Festival. On Saturday 24th of July at Trent Park, Cockfosters Road, London, EN4. This all-day festival kicks off from 12 noon till 8 p.m. Attractions to include live music, kids activities, fun fairs, cultural display, and a massive lineup of performing artists from Ghana. Tickets on sale from www.gpitp.com and usual outlets. Let's showcase our culture at Ghana Party in the Park Festival in London. Follow us on all socials at Ghana Party in the Park. Proudly sponsored by CBG Consolidated Bank Ghana Limited. World Remit. Brought to you by Kwabi UK and D-Vision Management. Media partners.
This is a knowledge-based society, and it's a knowledge-based economy. And I think I'm happy when I listen to Ghanaian politicians. They also realize that the natural resources it will have an end one day. So we believe in knowledge-based economy, and we don't believe in natural resource-based.
Kwame Nkrumah's advisors came from Hungary, and I say this with pride. Fortunately, the university that I went to is the same university His Excellency went to. And I keep saying, to set the record straight, he was my junior. So that's why he likes saying the 90s. So when we say the 90s, they get very close to me, but I was his senior. Yes.
Cheers, Happy. Thank you very much for having us. So meanwhile, David is doing what he has to do.
Okay, so final Lex, I'll just take a minute or so from each person. So, Dr. Yakubu Alasan, let's just wrap this up quickly.
1 minute.
Yes.
All right.
A minute or two, depending on how generous
I have to emphasize that the shortages that we are witnessing are not artificial shortages. There are real shortages, not artificial ones. In fact, we need to have a look again at the value chains, that's the way the value chains are organized in the agricultural sector. Seed. I can tell you, there was somebody making a point that they have not paid seed for this year. No, I am a seed producer, a small-scale seed producer, very small-scale producer. I haven't been paid for seed I produced in 2019. 2020, I can't even talk. So constantly I'm on phone. Yes, they haven't got the money. And these are the things that inform what production we are going to get the following year. Last year, I lost my entire maize farm. It's not only about floods, it's also about fire. Last year, I lost my entire maize farm, 30 acres to fire. I lost my entire soybean farm. I'm not doing soybean this year because I'm not sure that I can protect the farm. So those are the things that inform decisions with respect to farmers. Let me also add that we need to be careful about how we comment on our sector within the country, particularly those of us who are supposed to be the managers of the sector. Because I think that information about a major sector like agriculture is also security information.
But we need the information.
Yes. It should be on need-to-know basis. Where appropriate, yes, you can say. But if you step out and you are saying that these are your achievements, you are asking people that, oh, you have too much, and therefore they can come and take as much as they want out. Shortly before the elections, paddy that was in people's warehouses for years in Tamale, people came from Nigeria and other places and swept all the paddy out of the country. So as we speak today, those are the reasons why we have maize prices going up so high. Poultry farmers are complaining. If you go to the market now, those who are going to buy the maize and go and eat are also complaining because a bag of maize now has moved from anywhere around 100 cedis to inching towards 400 cedis a bag. That is for people to eat, not to talk about even poultry.
Okay, that's all the time farmers. I will give you. I will give closing words to Seydou Mubarak. Seydou.
Yes.
You have 1 minute.
For me, in concluding, I want to align myself with my colleague, Dr. Charles, that all is not lost. The season is not far gone. We still have about 2 weeks planting window up north, and quite a number of farmers are still planting. And so if we're having assurances of getting much fertilizers, then the 2.5 million projection of Farmer Morrison is not a big deal for farmers to meet. And so we should be calm.
Okay.
It's only in the event that we don't get the fertilizers that we'll be worried. Because
but that is the problem. If people are owed 650 million Ghana cedis, 650 million Ghana cedis, and they say they are owed, should you be hoping? But anyway, that's a question for you anyway.
I mentioned also that of the seed. Some of our seed companies have not also been paid, but seeds have been supplied. I mean, a number of companies have supplied a lot of seeds, and farmers are using it on the field. So we are also hoping that in the event of the fertilizers also still not being paid, we get some good quantities of fertilizers for the fields. Other than that, we would be heading towards a big problem in December.
Okay, all right then. Thank you very much. Seydou Mubarak, he is an executive council member of the Seed Trading Association, and that is how I wrap up the big issue. Yes, of course I'm wrapping up.
Oh, you've not allowed me to make my conclusion remarks.
My time is up.
You've not allowed me to make my conclusion remarks.
Charles, I gave you an intervention.
Just a second. Just a second. You've not allowed me.
Okay, hold on.
I have a set message for the former deputy minister and the government.
Okay.
So I welcome him on board. I've been in this struggle with him when he was in power. So I have a membership card for him to come and register. And I hope that one day when he come back again and we go to him, he will listen to us. The last
your message is delivered. 30 seconds is out, Charles.
I'm around this one.
Hold on.
Yes.
He says no, don't worry.
I must.
So the point is that the 2.5 million bags are mentioned. It's only for the poultry industry.
Yeah.
And not for
the national.
Not for the national. Certainly. It will be more than that. But let me say that the last data from the European Union Committee for Common Organization of the Agriculture Market, April
2021 states that Ghana imported 213,803 metric tons of frozen chicken. Now, European Union is the third largest country we import from. Brazil is 1, US. So just do the mathematics and see how much we import.
All right, thank you very much.
But I never failed to listen to Yaba and his group.
All right,
as minister. I never failed.
No problem. Have a good weekend.